Hello everyone. Today I am talking about how to price structure your consulting business, what I have done in my space consulting company and what I no longer do. And stick around for the end for a bonus tip that I had to learn the hard way. Hi, my name is Laura Forsick. I am the Executive Director of Astrolytical, which is a boutique space consulting firm helping businesses, government entities, and nonprofits to grow in space. And I have made some big mistakes over the years. Pricing has been probably the number one mistake that I have made in my consulting business. And I want to help you to not make the mistakes that I have made. Hourly is very popular because it is so easy and we are very used to it when we are starting out as workers in minimum wage jobs and when we are hiring others. We are so used to trading our time for money. But that is not the best way to actually structure what you do in your consulting business. You can check out my last video about why it's not a good idea to try to convert your annual salary or what you want to make in your annual salary to an hourly rate and then charge that in your business, because it does not convert. Personal finances are different from business finances. And this is a problem I've had in my consulting company because no one taught me that. So I ended up undercharging for many years. And hourly was the primary way that I charged when I first started my consulting company. I had an hourly rate, and at times I would switch up my hourly rate depending on if it was a corporate client, a nonprofit, an individual. And what happened is it's not scalable. You are trading your time for money, and time is finite. And not only that, but there's a power differential there too, where someone can mistake you as an employee if you are charging by the hour. It can feel like a employer-employee relationship rather than a partnership, which is what consulting should be. And you also can't scale it. So if you're trying to scale your business, if you're trying to go from solopreneur, that is just you, to having a team, then you really cannot charge by hour. The math does not work. There's also a trust component. The first client I ever got in my consulting company, it was an hourly rate that I charged her, and she did not comprehend that it actually takes time to write emails and to write up messaging on her behalf. And so she asked me what is it I was charging her for. She accused me sort of indirectly of padding hours when I'm like, no, this is actually what it takes. And unfortunately, I have been on the other side of this, where I have had an hourly employee that was dishonest about how many hours he was working for me. And once I realized that, then that completely eroded the trust in the relationship. So hourly can be very tricky. So as of today, the way I structure my consulting business is I really do not do hourly except in very specific circumstances. If it's a one-off call, let's say a market research company wants my time for an hour to discuss a specific space-related project that they are working on, or somebody wants to pick my brain before working with me longer term, then that is something that I would charge hourly for. But as of today, I do not charge hourly. It's really impossible to factor in the time of my entire team and the expense of my entire company into an hourly rate. So you really can't scale with hourly, and that is something I've had to learn the hard way and adjust. Another version of hourly pricing is subcontractor pricing. Some consulting companies set up their business so that they are subcontractors, essentially temporary agencies for larger companies to be able to pull employees and talent from. That is not what I do in my consulting business. We are not an extension of other people's companies. We are instead expertise in our own right. Subcontractor pricing has a list of employee types, let's say entry level, medium range, senior level, manager, and each of these types of employees has a different price point. And one of the reasons I really don't like this is it's because it's a bit a la carte of let me choose one version of this and two versions of that and sort of like grab and pull different types of people. And that's just not the way I want to be seen when I'm running my company. I don't want other people to see my company as an extension of where they can pull employees from that they temporarily need. I want people to see the relationship as a partnership. So again, you have that same problem as hourly, where it's a power differential that I'm not going for. I'm not looking for employer-employee. I'm looking for that partnership. And so that's why I don't do subcontractor pricing. Another popular model is retainer or monthly flat fees. And this was actually the structure that I went into with my second client in my first year of my business. And oh, if you've heard my stories, you know that the first year of my consulting company was a complete disaster. That first one that I talked about, that was an hourly rate, turns out she didn't even have the money to pay me the hourly rate that she promised. And so that didn't last long at all. And then the second, that was a fixed monthly rate that they paid me. And I immediately, after signing my contract, realized it was a huge mistake. Big newbie mistake, because I did not cap my hours. And again, that's the problem with being a solopreneur, is it can be that employer-employee relationship when it really should not be. And so this particular client, they absolutely exploited me. They paid me very little money for essentially full-time and sometimes over full-time work. And so here I was working 40, 50 hours a week for almost no money. And I could not run the rest of my business. I could not get other clients. Like, I was essentially stuck working for this monthly flat rate of unlimited hours. And the resentment built up fast, let me tell you. So what I would have done differently if I could go back in time, well, I wouldn't have worked with them to begin with, but if I could go back in time, I would never sign a contract that did not cap the number of hours. So if you're going to do a monthly rate, make sure it is not unlimited hours, because you will find people who will exploit you and take advantage of that contract structure. Now, the problem with capping your hours, what if a client has a specific expectation as to what you will accomplish that month? And you've reached the limit of your hours. Do you go to them and ask for more money so that you can give more hours? And that's sort of like an hourly rate kind of extension. Or do you tell them, I'm sorry, you've reached your limit for this month? And then it's seen as poor performance on your side, where that client might see you as not performing your duties or getting the results that they hope that you will get. So I don't do monthly retainers. I know it works really well for some consultants, but that's just not one that I have found at this time works well for my company. A model that is somewhat less common in consulting is products or productized services. And this is something I do with my coaching clients. I also do coaching with individuals to help them enter the space industry or to progress their space careers. And I do have specific packages that have a very clear price point and a very clear expectation of what the package is. And so that's an example of a product. I really don't do this on the consulting side except in specific circumstances, such as the pitch deck review. So if a startup or an investor wants us to review a pitch deck, a standard pitch deck, certain number of pages, we charge a specific price point for that. So it's very clear, it's very predictable. The problem is that it's not customizable. And so if you have someone who comes to you with a more complex situation, then you really can't customize your specific product for that client. Also, it can get a bit messy if your client is a bit needy. So let's say that pitch deck review, they want to add more pages and they expect you to have that included in that original price. And that can get a little bit complex if they are a more needy client. And so I do this in circumstances, but I don't tend to do this very much. So what is the price structure that Astrolytical uses? Typically, we do customizable project-based services. So a client comes to us with a specific project, and all of our clients are so very different and they have different needs. And so we really have customizable solutions based on their needs, based on their price point as well. So what we have is a scope of work that we negotiate ahead of time. So it's very clear about what the client is getting, what the deliverables are, what the timeline is, what the milestones are, and what the result will be at the end. And if there is an extension to that work, we add amendments at the end. But for that initial scope of work, when the contract is being negotiated, I also include different tiers of projects. And so if a, all-inclusive, this gives you everything you could ever want is too much for their budget, then they can downscope. I never discount, I only downscope the value of the project. And then of course, if the other way around, if they want to add on different milestones or different deliverables, then that's upscoping and you're adding on different work that would then be a separate amendment to the contract. And this has worked out really well. The trick here is pricing it properly. Originally, originally I used to try to estimate the number of hours it would take me to do a certain thing, and that gets messy really fast, especially with larger projects and especially as you add on team members. And so what I do now is I try to estimate the value that these results are going to get for the clients. So if a client is going to get a return on investment of 10 times, then it's a no-brainer for that client to sign the contract at that price point. We really try to work within the client's needs and what their budget is. And this, again, has worked out really well. Again, it's a challenge still for me, even 7 years into this company, figuring out the exact price points of how much it's worth for me and my team and any kind of freelancers that we need to hire on to work a certain project. But all in all, it ends up working out really well compared to the other methods that I told you previously about. Now, I do know of consulting companies and individual consultants who have taken on pro bono work to get up portfolios, and I can understand that. I don't work pro bono. I've given some pro bono advice just to people because it's not worth my time to bill them for it. But I do not work pro bono. I do not work for equity compensation. I have in the past twice taken on equity compensation, and it has resulted in $50 for over a year's worth of work and $0. And so you can't pay your team with equity. You can't pay your taxes or any other business expenses with equity. So that is just not something that my company does anymore. Now, here's that bonus tip that I told you that I had to learn the hard way. Include a late fee in all of your dealings with clients. And unfortunately, this is the case where clients can be unreliable. And it might not even be the clients that you expect will be unreliable. And so whatever that is, it's net 30, next 60 days, wherever it is that you think is a reasonable amount of time to be paid, just tell them you're going to have a late fee. And I have a compounding 5% late fee for every month late. And so it'll add up over time if they continuously do not pay. I've only had one client where I've actually had to implement a late fee for, and I don't regret it. I regret not implementing it sooner. And really, yours is a business and you're a professional, and so you need to be treated professionally, and that means getting paid in the timeline that you'd both agreed to at the start. So go ahead and add that late fee to your services. It'll incentivize people to take you and your business seriously. Thank you so much for going through these different pricing options with me. If you have any interest in Astralytical's consulting services, go to astralytical.com and we will help you to grow your business in space. If you're an individual interested in progressing your space career or entering the space industry, talk to me about coaching at laraforsick.com. Thanks so much.